All right, let's jump right into this explainer by thinking about something you probably have sitting in your pantry right this second. Just a tiny, hard, totally tasteless white pebble. On its own, it has literally no smell, and if you tried to bite it right now, you'd probably crack a tooth. But today, we're going to contrast this completely unassuming little seed with its monumental status as the absolute, undisputed king of the human diet. We are tracing the incredible journey of a single grain of rice all the way from a muddy puddle straight to your dinner plate.
To really get why this matters, you have to wrap your head around the sheer scale of this stuff. Over 3 billion people rely on this one specific seed to survive. Every single day. I mean, step and think about that for a second. That is nearly half the planet. Entire empires have been built on it, wars have been fought over it. It is quite literally a fundamental pillar of human existence.
And this stat brilliantly illustrates why global economies depend on it. This simple little grass provides a staggering 1/5, 20% of all the calories consumed by humans worldwide. But how exactly does a wild, marshy weed transform into that perfect, fluffy, steaming bowl of comfort you get with your Friday night takeout?
Section 1. The grass that rules Earth. Earth's survivalist crop. So the crazy thing is, scientifically speaking, what we call rice, or Oryza sativa, is really just a semi-aquatic grass. Its story kicks off roughly 10,000 years ago in the Pearl River Valley of ancient China. Early hunter-gatherers basically just noticed this wild grass growing along the riverbanks, and they started saving and replanting the biggest seeds. Fast forward through thousands of years of careful, deliberate selection, and early farmers had domesticated it into the ultimate survivalist crop. And the reason it spread like wildfire across the globe? Well, it yields a massive amount of calories per acre. The grains can be stored for literally years without spoiling, and it thrives in environments that would completely destroy almost any other crop.
Section 2. The brilliant mud hack. Suffocating competition.
Okay, when you picture a rice farm, you almost certainly picture it under a foot of muddy water, right? Well, here is the huge secret. Rice actually grows perfectly fine on completely dry land. The real issue is that on dry land, fast-growing weeds will quickly choke out the rice plant. Flooding the fields isn't about watering the plant. It's an ancient, brilliant hack for weed control. Most competing land-based weeds and pests simply drown and rot when they're submerged, which leaves the rice plant standing there entirely alone.
Now you might be wondering, why doesn't the rice drown too? It survives the flood because of a biological superpower called parenchyma. Basically, these are specialized, hollow tubes inside the rice stems that act exactly like microscopic snorkels. They literally pull oxygen from the air up above, right down into the submerged roots. So again, that massive flood of water isn't feeding the plant, it's just suffocating all the competition while the rice happily breathes underwater for 3 to 6 months.
Section 3. The milling gauntlet. Mechanical transformation.
So once it's harvested, it goes through a pretty brutal mechanical gauntlet. First up is threshing, which just separates the grain from the stalk. But right out of the field, freshly harvested rice is super unstable and packed with moisture. If you just left it in a pile, it would rot in a matter of days. So step 2 is absolutely critical. It has to be rapidly dried, either under the hot sun or in massive silos, down to exactly a 14% moisture level. Once it's dried, it gets hit with giant rubber rollers that gently squeeze off the tough, inedible outer shell, which is called the hull. Boom! Now you have brown rice, complete with its nutritious bran layer. But if you want white rice, we move to step 4, where huge milling machines physically scrub off that brown bran layer to reveal the starchy white center, which is finally buffed to a pearly shine.
But wait, how do they get rid of the broken or discolored grains before it goes into a bag? This part is just mind-blowing technology. In modern processing plants, millions of grains fall in a literal waterfall. As they fall, high-speed cameras in an optical sorter scan every single individual grain. If a camera spots a bad one, micro-nozzles fire pinpoint blasts of compressed air to shoot that specific grain out of midair in a fraction of a millisecond. It is absolutely wild to think this kind of laser precision sci-fi tech is happening just for the bag of rice sitting in your kitchen right now.
Section 4. Varieties and myths. Exploring rice diversity.
Now, by the time it hits your table, you might think all rice is pretty much the same. But the diversity is amazing. You've got jasmine from Southeast Asia, which has this incredible, almost popcorn-like floral aroma. There's basmati from India and Pakistan, which is actually aged like fine wine to get perfectly fluffy and nutty. Then you have arborio from Italy. That one is absolutely packed with creamy amylopectin starch, which is what gives risotto its rich texture. Making a spicy tuna roll, you're going to need wonderfully sticky Japanese sushi rice. And then we have the ultimate plot twist. North American wild rice isn't actually rice at all. It's the seed of a completely different species of aquatic grass. Mind blown, right?
Real quick, before we move on, let's take a tiny detour to bust a massive, super specific myth about weddings. We've all heard that warning whispered at ceremonies, right? Don't throw rice at the bride and groom, because birds are going to eat it. The rice will expand in their little stomachs and they'll explode. Well, I am very happy to report that this is 100% false. Just think about it for a second. Birds eat wild, uncooked grains out in nature all the time. Their stomachs are perfectly built and adapted to digest raw grains just like this. The rice will absolutely not expand and harm them. So go ahead, throw the rice, celebrate, and save the birds.
Section 5. The climate secret. Methane emissions.
All right, so remember that brilliant mud hack we talked about earlier? Well, unfortunately, it comes with a pretty heavy cost. Because that flooded water totally cuts off oxygen to the soil underneath it, it creates an absolute perfect breeding ground for methane-producing bacteria. As a result, rice farming alone is actually responsible for roughly 10% of all global agricultural methane emissions. And to put that into perspective, this isn't just a minor oopsie, it's a major climate threat. Methane is a greenhouse gas that is 28 times more potent than carbon dioxide. It traps significantly more heat in our atmosphere, making those ancient, beautifully flooded paddies a surprisingly massive contributor to global warming.
Section 6. Farming in the sci-fi era. Tech fights back.
But human ingenuity is fighting back. Farmers are starting to adopt the super smart technique called AWD, or alternate wetting and drying. Instead of keeping the fields flooded the entire time, they periodically just let the soil dry out and breathe. This simple, common-sense act starves out those methane-producing bacteria, which can slash emissions by up to 50%. Plus, it saves massive amounts of water in the process. And when you add in incredible modern tools like drones spraying and monitoring the fields from above, artificial intelligence analyzing soil sensors to predict crop yields, and CRISPR technology developing seeds that can resist extreme drought, it's just wild. We are witnessing the rapid, high-tech evolution of a 10,000-year-old crop right before our eyes. So, the next time you scoop up a spoonful of fried rice or bite into a piece of sushi, take a second to really look at it. Remember the incredible journey of that single seed. It survived muddy puddles, crushing mill rollers, and mid-air blasts from optical lasers. It truly is a grass that learned to breathe underwater, a tiny, starchy miracle that powers the human race. I'm going to leave you with this final thought to chew on as we wrap up this explainer. If a simple bowl of rice has a 10,000-year history packed with biological superpowers and sci-fi lasers, what other ancient miracles are hiding in plain sight on your dinner plate right now? Keep asking questions about your food, guys, and keep learning. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will catch you on the next one.